There is not one animal with more strut than the Carnotaurus. Head held high, he exudes confidence from the tip of his tail to the end of his snout. For years now, he has been the apex land carnivore of Riverbank. All of that is, of course, about to change. But for now, he rules the island. Or does he? I had barely taken my first steps when I spotted my first meal darting ahead of me along the sand. We must have spawned around the same time, and very near to the same place. Quite unfortunate for the Herrera, as being on the ground against a similarly aged Carno is never an ideal situation. I made my way south, seeking more sustenance to keep me growing. Where there's food, there's usually danger. But I had hoped that the darkness would conceal me from whatever was lurking in the area. Quite unfortunately, it did not. Nor did I run through the safest of escape routes. Pushed off the food, I had to make my way to West Rail and hope that I could find something before I starved. Just as I was about to give up hope, Gateway provided, as she always does. An untouched dibble carcass. From a dibble that I could only assume fell off the small drop or was killed by another herbivore. Once healed, I made my way back towards south. There was a tenno there, though at my age, an absolutely impossible fight, unless someone lopped off its tail and made it into soup first. I made do with tackling a raptor that was eating who knows what beside the salt lake. No point in swimming after it. Not with my swim speed, anyway. More fun to just make him swim longer and check out what he was eating. A few nibbles and the sun hitting its peak later, I spotted another raptor eating something else on the far side of the pond. This one was a bit more aware. He escaped in much the same fashion as the larger one. I don't like water. My stumpy little fingers are not equipped for swimming. Instead, I raced around the pond, attempting to spot the raptor where he'd exited on the other side. I didn't see the raptor, but I saw a dilo carrying the lungs that raptor had leaped into the pond with before. They were together. Well, in that case, I'd just have to deal with the interloper. Not wanting to take a flying leap and risk breaking my legs or dying, I slowed down momentarily and lost sight of my target. How unfortunate. Oh well. The dibble carcass would work as a consolation prize at the very least. I needed stamina, so I sat down in a bush nearby, only to have a dibble juvenile waltz right up to me. To be fair, I don't think he knew I was there, because as soon as I moved out of the way, he got into sparring stance. But after a polite exchange, we both went our separate ways. I moved back down into South proper and made my way casually along the riverbank. See, I'd spotted my previous targets, the mixpacking Dilo and raptors on the other side. But also on the other side was a trio of serratos. I could cross. I wanted that Dilo. But I knew if I did, the serratos would come for me. Which was fine if I had full stamina and places to go. Swimming, however, would drain a lot, and then chasing the Dilo would drain even more. It was asking for trouble. So instead, I trotted casually along the riverbank, watching what the serratos would do, while also trying to keep an eye on my preferred targets. Sure enough, one serrato crossed while the other ran down the bank after me. I kept my head carefully facing the one on the opposite bank, acting as if I wasn't actually watching the one that had crossed. I dodged him easily enough and trotted back in the other direction. Silly serratos. The Dilo and raptors got away too, which was mildly unfortunate. When I next logged in, I was getting quite hungry. Thankfully, though, I spotted a young serrato almost immediately. Stroke of luck for me, not so much for him. There were a bunch of baby serratos in the sanctuary. With the corpse being bad for my diet, I moved it over so that they could somewhat safely eat once I was through with the organs. Exiting the trees and still hungry, I saw my next target. Another young serrato getting a drink. Boy, oh boy, it was an unfortunate time to be an adolescent serrato. The fresh spawns would be eating well, though. I didn't bother moving this corpse when I was done with it. My kindness for the infantile enemy only extends so far. Having spent much of my life in the southern region of the map, I opted to go on a nice little walkabout. I hoped to find others elsewhere, but I'll be honest. Despite the server being full, I didn't find much to entertain me. Instead, I passed through barren lands for a while, ultimately ending up in Delta as part of my full loop through the map. With Horde Test causing so many players to hang out in Delta where the AI dibbles are, I guessed, as my food was reaching warning levels, that I might find someone over here. Initially, however, I thought my hunch hadn't played out. I saw nothing. I heard nothing. Quite unfortunate. Worried about my hunger, I began moving in the direction of south once more, only to hear Dilos calling behind me. Aha! I knew it! If they'd seen and hidden from me before, I didn't want them to know that I had turned around and come back. I swam across the river, using the foliage between where I'd heard them and myself, to remain as hidden as possible. Once on shore, I attempted to pinpoint their location. It wasn't difficult. They were standing in an open field. Were they nesting? I couldn't believe they'd placed the nest in such an open space. It was daylight, 2 Dilos, and I had the ambush advantage. I could take them. As one walked away, I broke cover to charge in the direction I was pretty sure the nest itself and the other Dilo had to be sitting. There was a slight distortion in the grass. That had to be them. With the initial target down and the other knocked into the water and fleeing, I went to the nest for a quick snack. I was still envenomed, but I was also healthy enough I wasn't worried that the clones would finish me off. I'm a wanderer by nature. Staying in one place bores me, and so, despite knowing that the world feels quite empty outside of the hotspots, I continued to wander. Eventually, with no real prospects for a good meal, I was forced back to south once more. It had been a fairly chill life so far, which is why when I saw the mixed herd of dibbles, trikes, Apache, and a stego fighting a group of Ceratos, I decided to very carefully wander on by and see if there was anything I could safely scavenge. I didn't want the Ceratos to turn and target me as the solo, easier target. But I also didn't want to risk leaving and find myself dragging my sorry hide back here emaciated and desperate either. As far as I could see, none of the serratos had been killed. And none of the herbivores had been either. Opting to ignore my food level, I wandered down the hill. Because see, I don't know if you noticed them, but there was a Troodon and a group of Herreras with those herbivores. Not the worst mix pack to ever exist, but a mix pack all the same. And as the small game hunter, there was small game afoot. Not sure where the serratos had gone, and not exactly wanting to get jumped, I moved carefully around the back way to the salt pond. I wasn't willing to run into the middle of the mix pack as a lone carno. Never a good idea. But I was fast, and that speed would mean something if I could get the pack spread out a bit. The adult Dibble spotted me down below, and in very, very typical Dibble fashion, decided that he was absolutely going to catch the carno. Dibbles are definitely the fastest land predator to ever walk the earth, obviously. I had hoped momentarily that it was the sub-Dibble, but no. Definitely the adult. And then, as I turned to walk away, the serratos came out of the bushes. Holy macaroni. They didn't seem to want me, though. They wanted the Dibble. Well, perfect. The Trike and Stego came running down the hill, realizing their Dibble was being attacked. I, however, was much more interested in what followed in their wake. The Herreras and True, and a couple of baby herbivores. I targeted the baby trike first. When it dropped, I moved away though. One of the Herreras had gotten into position to jump at me. I wasn't going to make the mistake of letting him. When I turned back, the baby Dibble came down next. I made quick work of him, too. By now, the Stego had realized what was happening and came to chase me off the carcasses. Teasing him for a moment, just enough to get him to start turning away, though, I saw that the Packy had reached the Dibble baby. He must have been incredibly stinky. My Carno sent him straight into the pond to take a bath. I'd have loved to finish the Packy off, but unfortunately now the Trike and Stego both came running to try and protect it. And I'm not stupid enough today to run into that level of carnage. As the Chungus crew sat on the Dibble carcass, the Herreras and Troodons started pulling organs from the baby trike. I saw my next opening. Up and around the cliffs. Out of sight, out of mind. I prepared to charge the small game. I took out 2 of the Herreras with my charge and set the meatballs rolling up the hill angrily after me. Over my shoulder, I saw the serratos still lurking. Well, the Dibble was here again, and they had wanted it earlier. I made the quick and dangerous decision to rush into the trees directly at the serratos. leading the dibble to them instead of to me. Honestly, it had been long enough. I wondered if these Serratos were the same 3 I'd dropped those carcasses to in the sanctuary hours earlier. Either way, they clearly decided they didn't want the dibble anymore. I took advantage of using them as a distraction for the herbivores, and slipped back down to where the diblet carcass was, still untouched. To the victor goes the spoils. With the sun beginning to set and a full belly, I had a choice to make. Continue bothering the herd and picking off their children one by one, or leave south. Obviously the choice was to pick off the children. Who do you take me for, Bruce? The Serratos had apparently attempted to get a drink or something, because as I came up the hill, the larger herbivores were very aggressively chasing something in the darkness. Double-checking that they'd all gone down the hill, I spotted my targets. 2 baby trikes. As I began my attack, the Troodon screamed for help. That help wasn't coming. Not this time. With both trikes down, the Troodon decided to play nice. The Herrera, however, didn't. And took a nice little boop for his troubles. He wouldn't be bothering me again anytime soon. The small game hunter goes forth victorious. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like and comment your thoughts below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for more content like this. Thanks, and I hope to see you again soon.